Thanks for tuning in to Tax Strategy Digest, where we explore the fascinating world of finance. Join us as we dive into the stories, insights, and experiences of experts, thought leaders, and everyday people who are making a difference in this field. Through engaging conversations and thought provoking discussions, we'll take a deep dive into the latest research, trends, and innovations shaping finance. So sit back, relax, and get ready to learn something new on this journey here with us.
Welcome to this episode of Tax Strategy Digest. Today, our guest is Andrew Bosserman. Andrew is a tax attorney who focuses on tax law and helps business owners navigate tax disputes. Andrew, thanks so much for hopping on today. Really excited to have you learn some more about what you do.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks so much for having me. And I'm excited to talk about taxes and dealing with the IRS and everything that goes along with that.
Awesome. Well, I have to ask, do your friends call you the boss man?
That's been sort of a nickname for a while, based on
Okay.
my last name, boss man, all sorts of derivations. So when I was coming up with the name for my law firm, it's called Boss Tax Law. I wanted it to be something memorable. I didn't want the standard, Bosserman Law, PLC or something. But also, it reflects that I do help, quote unquote bosses with tax issues, kind of the business owners and those in charge.
I like it. So tell us a little bit about your story. I mean, how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so it really started, I kind of fell in love with tax law from my first undergraduate accounting course in tax law. I just found it, even though it was complex, I enjoyed the challenge and also just learning about it. And when you learn more about tax law, you realize there's a lot of reasoning behind why Congress passes certain tax laws. And my first job out of college, I was an IRS agent, a revenue agent. I was auditing small businesses and individuals. I was the guy, you weren't excited to see show up at your door or send you a letter, give you a phone call, but it was a great experience. I saw many different kinds of businesses, learned how the IRS worked. And I also worked in public accounting, preparing tax returns for a few years. So I've prepared hundreds of tax returns and got that experience. But now I'm a tax attorney. I decided to go back to law school. And what I really love the most about tax law is that legal analysis and helping business owners navigate tax disputes with the IRS, whether that's just a notice for a penalty or an audit, an appeal, or even litigation. I really love combining, my knowledge of tax law along with helping businesses navigate the IRS, because a lot of people see it as a black box. But once you kind of know how it works, I enjoy helping make the process easier.
I love it. And what is it that usually will lead the IRS to auditing a business owner?
Yeah, so a lot of times you'll see articles about, hey, red flags for an IRS audit, but no one really knows exactly what causes red flags. A lot of people think that, hey, oh, maybe a home office deduction or claiming too many losses, but the way the IRS selects tax returns for audit, they have their own algorithm. It's secret. It is called, I think, the diff. There's a diff score assigned, but no one except those few individuals who work on it at the IRS know. But what generally happens is that every tax return that gets filed goes into the IRS's system and they process it and likely, compares your return against prior years and against other similarly situated taxpayers or businesses. It also matches against other information returns filed with the IRS, like 1099s or W-2s. And then if a high enough score gets assigned, it means the IRS thinks there's a high probability of errors on the tax return. And then it gets kicked out for audit. And then an agent reviews it and says, hey, these few line items look suspicious. And then it would go to someone like me when I was a revenue agent to audit the return. That's sort of the main way. And the vast majority of audits are because the IRS thinks there's a problem with the return. But there are also random audits, and that's what the IRS uses to refine their algorithm. And then on rare occasions, there are, sort of information referrals, or you can file a quote unquote whistleblower report with the IRS saying, hey, I think this person is breaking tax laws, and occasionally returns get selected that way. But almost probably 95, 99% of all returns, I would think, come through the general selection process of that algorithm.
And I think you kind of mentioned this already, but are there any like off the top of your head, just any red flags that the IRS they see and more often than not, it's something that'll at least raise one or two of them for them?
When I was an agent, it seemed to be every audit that I did had a number of different issues, or just common mistakes. So a lot of commonly audited line items are things like car and truck expenses, so like your mileage or your things you're deducting related to your car. Also travel, as well as meals and entertainment. I think a lot of those, it's probably a combination. Some, there are taxpayers out there that are trying to game the system, or trying to deduct expenses that aren't truly business expenses. But also the laws are fairly complex about, when can you deduct meals? When can you deduct travel? Hey, car and truck expenses, mileage rate versus actual expenses. There's a lot of complexity out there. So those are often audited. But in terms of, standard red flags, also maybe showing losses for too many years on a Schedule C or Schedule F for farming, because a lot, the IRS knows like this could be a hobby business or a hobby farm. But other than that, it's, there's no published list of what the IRS says, hey, this will definitely trigger an audit.
So what should a business owner do if they do end up getting audited and they do receive that notice in the mail?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the first thing, and what I tell people to always do, is like, don't panic. The IRS follows a formal sort of set of guidelines and rules when auditing the return. And, someone like me is familiar with how that works. The second thing, whether it's a notice or an audit, say you just receive a letter in the mail, you want to make sure you understand what exactly the IRS is asking for. And why they're saying they made a change to return or are proposing changes, because the IRS has hundreds of different letters and notices they send out to taxpayers. So it's important to read carefully and make sure you understand. And then you want to determine, hey, do I need to respond to this, and how should I respond? Sometimes the IRS is just asking for additional information. You may need to file a separate form to request, say, a penalty to get abated. And I've help taxpayers do that a lot of times. Or if it's truly an audit, there's going to be a document request, and you're going to have a meeting with an agent. And it's important to gather that information and prepare it and present it in a way that best supports your positions that the IRS is taking a look at. So that's the general process I go through with taxpayers regardless. The other important thing is also reviewing a copy of their tax transcript. So the tax transcript, it's kind of like, the record of what the IRS has regarding your account at the IRS. It looks kind of like a bank account, but it'll show, the tax payments you made, the tax return you filed, the tax that was owed, any penalties, interest, et cetera. But as part of every taxpayer I work with that has an issue, I always review a copy of their transcript, because you can find errors, or it just helps what the IRS is looking at. And you don't need, like an attorney or a CPA to get that for you, although you can go online to the IRS website and sign up for the tax account, whether individually or for business, and pull your transcripts. You can look at them regularly and just make sure you're staying on top of everything.
Is that something that you recommend that people do, or is that something you more so would say, hey, you should refer to someone like myself, or maybe your longtime trusted CPA?
I mean, it depends. You can do either. I mean, there are services, and I can pull transcripts regularly for clients if they don't want to go through the time or hassle. But it is important that sometimes the taxpayer individually is doing that, because, for example, I have a client who had their own CPA prepare their payroll returns, and was paying tax payments, but wasn't telling him that he was filing the returns late and taking money out of his accounts to pay penalties and interest. And when it got down to it, my client paid close to $1 million in penalties, and his CPA never told him, never disclosed it to him, even though they had monthly face-to-face meetings. So in that instance, even though you might rely on a CPA to do tax work for you, you yourself at least want to be reviewing the transcripts, you know, every few months, every 6 months or every year at a minimum, just to make sure you're not caught in one of those situations where you're being taken advantage of.
Sure. And so what are some of maybe the more common like tax saving tips that business owners maybe overlook pretty often? Obviously that one that you just described is maybe not more common. So what are some of the common ones that people are just, not seeing?
Yeah, so one that is often overlooked, especially for startup businesses, is what's known as Section 1202 or qualified small business stock. If you're in a qualifying industry, and a lot of like service-based businesses are exempt, so lawyers, accountants, architects, and I think hotels and restaurants are exempt. But if you're manufacturing something, or if you're a tech company, oftentimes you qualify. But if you form a company, or it's a pretty new company and it's taxed as a C Corp, and you hold the stock for more than 5 years, you can exempt all gain, essentially up to $10 million, when you go and sell the business. So oftentimes that gets overlooked when businesses are being formed, either their tax advisors aren't advising them on it, or they're always told, hey, we should be an S Corp or something like that. You hear that a lot from CPAs who might not be looking at the full picture. So if you are starting a new business, or you can also elect C Corps, that is possibly a little bit down the line. It's definitely something to look into, because you can save a lot of taxes, especially if you're planning on forming a business that's going to grow quickly, and you're planning on selling maybe in the 5 to 10 year range.
Very cool. I definitely wanted to bring this part up. So we talked a little bit prior to turning on the cameras, and you have kind of a very specific niche that you also work in. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So I also, in addition to helping, businesses of all kinds um, in tax disputes with the IRS and state and local governments, I also advise Christmas tree growers and forest landowners on tax issues. And how I got into that, well, I've just always loved, Christmas trees as a family. We always went to a local Christmas tree farm in Ohio, and cut down our own tree and took it home and put it up. And I ended up actually owning and operating a small Christmas tree farm of my own a number of years ago. And when I started looking into, the tax laws, or how to report that, I discovered that there's actually a special section of the Internal Revenue Code. It's section 631, if anyone wants to look it up. But it says essentially that Christmas tree sales qualify for capital gains. And that's completely different than the general law that says, business income is taxed at ordinary income rates and subject to self-employment tax if you're actively working for it. So I discovered Christmas trees might be the most tax efficient, crop or business out there, because you essentially get capital gain on all your income, and all of your expenses, or most of your expenses, offset then ordinary income, which is pretty neat. So I prepare tax returns and also help Christmas tree growers as well as forest landowners, because Christmas trees are considered timber under the Internal Revenue Code. So I advise Christmas tree farms. We have a lot of them here in North Carolina, where I'm now based out of Charlotte, but also people and family that own timberland and sell timber.
Very cool. So is that business really flourishing towards like November, December, or is it really year round?
Christmas trees, yeah, most there's probably a misconception that all you do is plant the trees and let them grow and then harvest them, a few years later.
Right.
But it takes a lot more work than that. It generally takes about 8 to 10 years to grow, a saleable Christmas tree of,
Wow.
7 to 8 feet tall. And even during the year, the summer right now, Christmas tree growers are dealing with, possibly insect and pest issues. They have to spray oftentimes herbicides like Roundup or something to control all the weeds. And they also each year have to shear the trees, which is essentially shape them to, be that perfect Christmas tree shape. They just don't grow like that naturally. You do have to trim them every year to get them to look like that. So, it really is a year-round business. All the sales happen in the fourth quarter and, November and December of each year. But, all Christmas tree growers, they're working year round to make sure they deliver a great Christmas tree in Christmas season.
What is your favorite what is your favorite topic to cover with people or business owners? Or I mean, maybe it really is like with just like Christmas trees, like because you just had a in your upbringing you had kind of a emotional attachment connection to it a little bit. Is that kind of your favorite thing to deal with? What does that look like for you?
I mean, I do love talking about Christmas trees and timber taxes. I've, spoken at a number of, each state actually has their own Christmas tree growers association, or most states do that, where you can grow Christmas trees. So I've spoken to a lot of those groups. Also have spoken to groups about timber taxes. So I definitely enjoy talking about that. But I also just enjoy talking about, my time at the IRS and how I help business owners work with tax issues, whether that's there, it covers a wide variety. It can be collection issues, how to deal with, hey, you owe taxes, but how can we get you on a payment plan or settle it for less than you owe? Or, you have penalties, how can we, craft a compelling argument to get these abated or refunded? And even going through the IRS audit and appeals process, I just really enjoy, presenting the case before appeals or before a court or whatever it is. Because a lot of times business owners, taxes they are a significant expense, and being able to, you know, save taxes, that's real money in their pocket, and it makes a big difference. And I just enjoy helping sort of make the complex system of taxes a little bit easier for businesses who are doing great things for our economy.
I love it. And what areas do you help business owners? Is it only in North Carolina where you're located, or do you help people nationwide?
I help people nationwide. So even though I'm based in Charlotte, North Carolina, I can help businesses with tax issues in all 50 states because we're dealing with federal law. I'm not limited by, state borders. And actually, a lot of my taxes or a lot of my clients aren't even based in North Carolina. I, work virtual with them, have, Zoom meetings or phone calls, and we can meet in person if necessary. But a lot of times we're also dealing with the IRS with an agent who's not in the same place either. So it's really easy nowadays to work with people nationwide and also with the IRS, whatever office we're dealing with.
Do you find it that there's more people in a certain state that are reaching out to you than, maybe other states?
I haven't really found too much. I mean, a lot come from, big metropolitan areas, I would say, like New York, Florida. I mean, just because a lot of, people live there, that makes more sense. But, I have a wide variety of clients from, in all different states. Doesn't seem to be any specific geographic areas because, the IRS, has similar procedures wherever they are, and if they think there's a problem with your tax return, they'll come after you.
Has there been one overarching theme to a vast majority of your clients, something that people can take and really focus in on and make sure that it doesn't happen to them?
I mean, the one thing I'd recommend that I alluded to earlier is make sure that you're, checking or have access to your tax transcript. Just in the instance that, say, a CPA or someone you trust, or it could even be, I've seen instances of an employee that's, embezzling by saying they're paying taxes, but actually aren't paying them to the IRS. I would highly recommend either, you yourself getting access to your tax transcript and looking at it on a regular basis, or hiring, someone else independent from whoever you trust to look at it on a regular basis. It will prevent, those sorts of issues like that, that's one thing I definitely recommend.
Did you ever have a mentor as you were starting to get into this, in this field?
I mean, I've had a number of mentors over the years. I mean, I learned a lot from my both college tax professors and law school tax professors. Um, I've had other attorney mentors, not always tax attorneys, but attorneys who are just a little bit ahead of me. And also recently with starting my own law firm, I was at a larger law firm, but actually just earlier this month, I started my own law firm to focus on helping business owners with tax disputes. Um, I've reached out and talked with so many solo and small firm attorneys, and they've all been extremely helpful in helping me set up my practice or thinking through how to get my name out there and find clients. And I've appreciated all the help they've given me. And I'm also here to help business owners and anyone else who might have a tax issue. And if I can't help you with it yourself, I can definitely point you in the right direction.
Definitely. And how has that jump been from working at a, large law firm to kind of taking a leap into entrepreneurship and starting your own firm?
It's been great so far. I mean, it's only been a few weeks, so going well so far. Fortunately, I was able to take a few clients with me, and then working on, developing my own book of business at my new firm. But I had a little bit of experience with entrepreneurship. Like I said, I ran my own Christmas tree farm for a few years. I also have been advising and preparing some tax returns for Christmas tree growers and forest landowners for a few years. So I knew kind of a lot of the basics, but a law firm's a little different. But I enjoy it. I get to focus on what I love best, which is taxes and helping business owners, Christmas tree growers, forest landowners, navigate those tax issues. And I just really love simplifying it and explaining taxes in a way that's easy to understand, and also that helps by explaining it to the IRS, why they should agree with my client's position.
Have you found that as a business owner, you're focusing a little bit more on the business aspect of things versus being able to help as many people when, you were just at the law firm, it was kind of maybe rinse, repeat, and you were really just focusing on the work? How have you balanced, if you've had to at all, the focusing on the business and in the business?
Yeah, so right now it's right. At a larger law firm, generally, you're focusing more on just doing the work of an attorney, the actual being an attorney. But there really are two separate aspects. You have the business, and then you have the attorney work. And I've been making sure to set aside time every day, whether it's to reach out to LinkedIn contacts or write a blog post, or to have coffee or lunch with other attorneys in my area. Um, especially now, because I'm trying to grow and build my book of business, I have time to do all that. But I know going forward, when I get busy, it'll still be important to carve out that time, because that's how the business grows. And hopefully eventually I'll be able to hire other attorneys or support staff to help me, and can focus on building the business, rather than just doing attorney work all the time.
That's awesome. And just a couple quick questions for you. I always like to ask some more like personal deep dive questions as we get a little further and towards the end. What is some advice you would maybe give to like your 16-year-old self, your 20-year-old self, that if there's a younger listener who just stumbled across this podcast? I know many young listeners probably don't go to Spotify or Apple Music and type in tax strategy digest, but if there is someone listening, what advice would you give them on pursuing something that not only they're passionate about and they really like, but maybe some hurdles you could help them overcome?
Yeah, no, I would say, you have those passions or that nagging, idea or whatever it is in your mind for a reason. And every time I've followed something I've really wanted to do, it's always turned out well. For example, a number of years ago, I was working as a financial analyst, but I didn't really love the job. But I'd always wanted to, take an extended travel trip. So I did. I saved up money and traveled around Southeast Asia for 6 months, backpacked around, visited a ton of different countries, had a lot of cool experiences, learned Muay Thai boxing and went free diving and, saw the Great Wall of China, all sorts of neat stuff. And, that really kind of set me up for to where I am today. When I was there, I thought about what I really wanted to do. And one of those things was, hey, I'd like to own a Christmas tree farm someday. And it was like, well, why not now? So I got back and got connected with owners of this Christmas tree farm I ended up taking over. But also led, shortly after that, I met my now wife and I decided to go to law school. So I think, yeah, advice I would give is, I've I've always had success when following my passions. And also, the best time to do something you've always wanted to do is now. I thought maybe I'd own a Christmas tree farm, way in the future, or possibly, wait a while to get a little bit more experience before opening my law firm. But, oftentimes I ask myself, well, why not now? And, I've always, uh, you know, found success or been happy when I decide to take action now instead of delaying it to some indefinite future date.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually saw something on LinkedIn this morning, and it was about how action takers are always those that succeed. And whether, they take action and they fail, they continue to take action and they probably learn from it or whatever it might be. But people who take action are always going to be the ones in the game winning and not on the sideline. So that's awesome. And one more thing. What's your why? Why do you do what you do?
Why? So I talked about it. I do it. One, I just have a passion for tax law. I feel is like one of the reasons, but also, I really enjoy. It's almost like being a teacher, but it's helping making complex tax topics simple and easy to understand. Whether that's explaining it to the client, or explaining it to the IRS in a way that's easy to understand and makes the case. And it goes back to when I was helping Christmas tree growers, but applies really to every business. Most of these businesses are owned by great people who are doing amazing things that provide, great goods or services to, you know, individuals in our communities. And I just enjoy helping them to be continuing to, run their business, focus on running the business. And I can handle, taking the tax disputes off their mind, because a lot of times, it takes up so much of their mental energy to, always have, oh, is this looming tax bill on my mind, or what's going to happen with that? And, they really should be focusing on, running their business and serving their clients.
Awesome. Well, as we wrap up here, what's the best way someone's listening right now? They want to reach out to you and learn some more, maybe hire you for your services. Where could they do that?
Yeah, the best way to reach me is to go to my website. It's BOSS taxlaw.com. There you can contact me, or my phone number is on there too. So give me a call and also learn a bit more about what I do. Also, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just, search my name, Andrew Bosserman, and it should come right up.
Perfect. Well, Andrew, I really appreciate your time, and I've had a blast getting to talk to you, get to know you, get to learn about these Christmas trees. And it actually blew my mind. I just wanted to mention it, that I never thought about it, that it takes 8 to 10 years for a tree to grow and actually get sold. For some reason, I just had it in my head that plant a tree in January and now in December you sell it. That's really, really cool. So I appreciate you sharing your story with us, and it's been a blast.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Thanks so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun. I always enjoy talking about taxes, and thanks for inviting me.